So today, we're diving into something really cool in the AI world called MIXRAG. And what it is a fascinating new way to stop AI from, just making things up. It basically teaches it to think and reason like a whole team of human experts. Let's get right into it. We've all been there, right? You ask one of these super powerful AIs a question, and it comes back with an answer that sounds so confident, but is completely wrong. This is what we call hallucination. And it happens because most of these models are trained on a fixed set of data. Their knowledge is basically a snapshot in time, so it gets stale. Now, to fix this, researchers came up with a brilliant technique called Retrieval-Augmented Generation, or just RAG for short. The easiest way to think about it is like giving the AI a library card. Before it answers you, it can go out and look up the latest, most relevant info from the real world. Problem solved, right? Well, not quite. This brings up a whole new challenge. What happens when the information isn't stored in nice, neat documents, but in what's called a textual graph? This is like a giant, complex spiderweb of facts, where everything is connected to everything else, and finding the right piece of information means navigating that web correctly. And this is where most current systems fall into what we can call the single retriever trap. They try to use one single, kind of one-size-fits-all tool to find their way through this web. And, as you can imagine, that generalist approach gets lost pretty easily. So to see what this looks like in practice, let's use a really simple example from the research paper itself. A user asks a pretty straightforward question. What's a good source of nutrients for a mushroom? And oh boy, look at what that single tool comes back with. On the left, yeah, it finds some useful stuff like plant and nutrients. That's great. But on the right, it also drags in a bunch of totally random, irrelevant noise, like a flying eagle. This is the kind of distraction that can completely derail the AI and lead it to give a much worse answer. And the researchers behind MIXRAG put it perfectly. They said that a one-size-fits-all retriever just doesn't have the special skills needed to untangle all these details and separate the signal from the noise in these complex knowledge webs. So that brings us to the big solution here, MIXRAG. And the core idea is brilliant. Instead of relying on one generalist tool that's okay at everything, MIXRAG assembles a whole team of specialized experts where each one has a very specific job to do. So here's how the team works. First up, you have the entity retriever. Its only job is to find the key things in your question, like mushroom. Then the relation retriever steps in. It looks for the connections between things, like is a source of. And finally, the subgraph retriever comes in and grabs a whole neighborhood of connected facts to give the AI the bigger picture. Okay, so a team of experts sounds great, but there are a couple of big questions, right? How does the system even know which expert to call for a certain question? And more importantly, how does it deal with all that distracting noise we saw earlier? Well, this is where MIXRAG's second superpower comes in, a smart filter. It uses a component called a query-aware GraphEncoder. You can think of this like a savvy sound engineer. It looks at all the information the experts have gathered, and then it turns up the volume on the stuff that's actually relevant to your question, while turning the volume way, way down on all that distracting noise. Okay, so the theory is solid, right? A team of specialists and a smart filter to clean up the results. But the real question is, does it actually work any better in the real world? Let's take a look at the results. And the answer is a big yes. When they tested it on a really tough question-answering benchmark, MIXRAG didn't just do well, it actually beat the previous best method, setting a new state-of-the-art score. It's the new champion. Now, I know you might look at those numbers and think, hey, that doesn't seem like a huge jump, but trust me, in the world of AI benchmarks, an improvement like this is a really big deal. It proves that this team of experts strategy is genuinely more effective. So what's the secret sauce here? What really makes MIXRAG work so well? It all comes down to one word, adaptability. This system isn't rigid, it actually changes its entire strategy depending on the kind of question you ask it. For instance, if you look at how it handled that complex data set, you can see how it uses its team. It's not just relying on one guy, it's spreading the work around. But you'll notice the subgraph expert, the one that gathers the most context, gets used just a little bit more, showing the system is smart enough to know which specialist it needs for the job. And it gets even more clever than that. For really simple one-step questions, the system learns to rely more on the relation retriever to find that direct link. But for really complex, multi-step questions, it figures out that the entity retriever is actually more valuable for keeping the whole search on the right track. It's incredibly nuanced. So let's just zoom out for a second and tie all this together. What MIXRAG really represents is a huge step forward. It's about building an AI that can reason more effectively, because it's way less likely to get distracted by useless information. The big takeaway here is really twofold. First, when you're dealing with complexity, a team of specialists will always beat a single generalist. And second, and this is so important, filtering out the noise is just as critical as finding the right information in the first place. Put those two things together, and you get AI that's just fundamentally more accurate and reliable. And why should you care about this? Well, it means that the AI assistants on our phones and in our homes are going to become more trustworthy. It means scientists can use these tools to find discoveries in complex data with much greater accuracy. It's really paving the way for an AI that can truly reason over complex knowledge. And all of this leads to one final, really exciting question to think about. If we finally have an AI that can navigate these incredibly intricate webs of knowledge without getting lost or distracted, what completely new, much harder problems can we finally ask it to help us solve?